Hello, so this is chapter 3, working with families and interprofessional teams. Basically, the um, synopsis of this chapter is that when you're working with children or many different aged individuals, the family and other professionals that you're working with, in addition to the patient, are very important and can have a lot of power over the patients and children that you're working with. So, families have a lot of power in helping or hindering a child's performance, but they are definitely central to best practice for OT. So, you need to figure out through narrative reasoning and an occupational profile and getting to know the individuals, what their culture is, how that supports their child, and how they feel they're going to be there to support their child into becoming an adult, because different cultures have different ideas about how independent a child should be, how much they should be doing for themselves. Some cultures carry their children around until they're 4, like tied to their back, and that's the culture. It's not because the kid couldn't walk or that they were trying to hold them back, because that's a cultural aspect of development there. So make sure that we know what that culture is, because it's going to help shape their child's identity and well-being. Families can help to participate and be part of the interventions and evaluations, and they help to foster the skills that the children are going to be working on. So we should look at family as a system where each person in the family affects the other person, and they create together a whole different system where maybe one person is great at something by themselves and another person is great at something by themselves, but then when you put them together in a family, their interdependent and reciprocal influences can impact how they're able to do things. So say a child can put on their shoes and zip their coat, but the parent really wants to help them and wants to show them how much they love them, and they do that for them all the time. This is an interdependent and reciprocal influence from a family system. There's definitely predictable patterns, and the family changes and evolves. Your family didn't stay the same from the time you were a toddler up until now. So it's an open system, just like Bronfenbrenner. Remember the theorist that told us those 5 different levels of the ecosystem outside of the child? Any of those different levels can impact the child's life. So we should be aware of financial resources, and the families may or may not have the financial resources for things that you want them to do. A lot of times having a child with a disability is a very taxing, hard, expensive endeavor. That also includes the human resources. So human resources, they might not be able to get the typical babysitter to come watch their child. They need to find other more educated people to watch their child. And they also can get really overwhelmed and fatigued. So human resources, they might just constantly need people around to help. This is also time resources. The child might need additional supervision. I know somebody right now who he's 14, but when I treated him from the time he was 2 until 5 with severe autism, they now have a 40-hour-a-week aide at the house due to his not being able to do ADLs independently, being aggressive and nonverbal, and needing a whole bunch of extra support. So there's a lot more money, time, which can impact everyone else in the family's lives, socialization and leisure activities. And then parents and families of children with disabilities can definitely get their energy, emotional energy, sapped from so much output of being emotionally um, like significantly involved in their child with developmental disabilities. A lot become extra anxious, depressed, sleep deprived. We can help them by setting them up with resources, maybe respite resources, or at least acknowledging, man, this is hard. Like, it looks like you're tired. How can I help? There's obviously diversity in all families, but I would be extra cautious to make sure that you're paying attention to um, different parenting styles. There's not one perfect parenting style. Different ethnic backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds that can have a big difference in how the family interacts. So an ecological perspective is a dynamic family systems, where we believe that the family is ever changing and has interdependent pieces that affect each other, and the community can also affect the family. Within the family subsystems, we obviously have parents, siblings, extended families. Some families have a much greater involvement of their extended families than others. Um, when we're talking about transitions in the family life cycle, there's normative transitions, such as going from preschool to kindergarten, or graduating high school and going to college, or being in a diaper to being potty trained. Those are normative events that transition a family or a child. Non normative events are divorce, death of a family member, death of a parent. Those are things that happen more out of the normal, traumatic. They can affect the entire family, including the child. Um, so, as far as the stages of life, early childhood, the child's going to probably be in that diagnosis process where somebody's trying to figure out what's going on with them. What are their strengths? What are their needs? Do they have a diagnosis? By school aged, back in this early childhood, they probably are getting early intervention, birth to 3 years old. At 3 years old, they transition to technically school age. 3 to 5 is preschool, and 5 to 21 is school aged. They the parents and the family sometimes has problems during the school age time kind of stepping back, because in the early intervention, this early childhood stage, they have much closer contact with the service providers, and normally the services are done in their home. Once it's school age, they may no longer be directly involved, but they still should be. You as the therapist should include them, but they're not going to be coming to the sessions every time, of course. Adolescence can be very stressful for the child and the family. Everything is changing. There's a huge increased social stigma when you're an adolescent with a disability. So these three words are just definitions that you should remember: adaptation, resilience, and accommodation. Those are all strengths that, if the family is able to adapt, be resilient, and accommodate to changes, those are positives for them. We can support families supporting their children by adapting routines, embedding our adapted strategies in their regular routine. We do not want to make them do extra things on top of what they're already doing. We are embedding strategies that will help their child in the everyday routine and life that they already have. We can help with going into the community. Maybe that would include advocating, or you can go into the community with them, like maybe do therapy in the park or McDonald's or somewhere that, if they're having trouble with socialization. with the interprofessional team, the family is definitely part of the interprofessional team, and interprofessional services will partner with the family to be supportive and educational for them. When we're partnering with families, we have to start by building rapport, including building trust and respect. If they don't trust you or respect you, they will not do what you suggest that they do, and it will your ability to help the child will be limited. So we should respect their decision making and respect that they really want the best for their child, and then you help to give them tools to do that. We are flexible, accessible, and responsive. That is really important, to not be rigid and be able to acknowledge what's important to the families and help them to be able to advocate for what they need. Communication strategies. We will become super amazing professional at effectively communicating in multiple different ways, both formal and informal. So I write super formal evaluations that might be a 9-page, single-spaced, very professional evaluation. I also text the parents for scheduling therapy, and I make sure that my nonverbal communication is communicating what's actually going on with me. So check table 5-2 on communication methods. Home programs. You should, I already said this before, but you should make sure that if you're going into the house or you're giving a home exercise program or some kind of home program, try to identify already occurring events that you could look at them in more of a therapeutic way and help the parents to be able to facilitate through their normal routines and activities more of a specific site on how that will help the child. So parents really like it when you give them specific objective information. You have flexibility, you have optimism, and coupled with obviously technical expertise and skills. So there's the summary, and make sure that you look at your chapter 3 in the book. Have a great day.